Hey, good morning. My name is Jared. I host a daily live podcast where we discuss news and politics. I'm a socialist, and I want everyone to have universal health care, education, income, and housing. I'm making this video today because I'm sitting here thinking about, well, as I often do, I think about people that don't look like me, and that comes in a range of flavors. So I'm not just thinking about young people and how they're being affected by this era of misinformation, how their education is being destroyed and downplayed and devalued. And I just wanted you to know, as someone that coached high school football in Indianapolis, Indiana, at a charter school, the reason they want to privatize education and give all that money to private schools is so they don't have to feed your children. That's one of the reasons that I am having trouble getting a job coaching football in Indianapolis, Indiana, is because I will literally feed your children. I'm just going to say it out loud. I coached track, and Indiana IHSAA rules say that if you keep the kids 3 hours after school, you got to feed them. And I brought it up to Troy Reeder, the track coach, and said, like, you got to feed these kids. And he was like, it doesn't apply to us. And he went to fucking Carmel, so what would he know about struggling ever? So I just want to make sure that I said that on wax. The reason they're trying to privatize education is so that they can further ostracize struggling kids and families. See, the Republicans and people that vote for them, they have this thought process that what happens won't hurt or affect them. But I'm just saying the truth. The people that are going to be most impacted outside of the kids whose lives are in danger, I read something horrible. One of my friends is a preschool teacher, and they've had to do shooting drills, okay, before we'll ban ARs. Like, what a silly thing. Lay down your arms, turn them into plowshares, right? Once you realize they'll just continue to sacrifice children at the altar of the Armalite, right? And don't come at me with that shit. Marine Corps infantry, grew up with a weapon in my hand. Don't give a shit about that anymore. And then I think about people much older than me, retirees, people that helped build this country, fought for this country, whose parents certainly fought for this country. And ultimately who are watching its collapse. I'm thinking about their livelihoods. You know, there are people that are old enough that they've like retired a couple times, and they put in decades of work, and all of that is on the verge of being ripped away so that a handful of rich people. This isn't this isn't red versus blue, left versus right. I will say what is in office is an authoritarian dictatorship. That's classically what that is. Fascist authoritarian dictatorship, which is very much far right. Okay? And I just want you to know that and you see how backstabby and how much chaos and disorganization there is because there's no platform to the Republican Party. Small government is sort of fucking hilarious when you're just gutting them. And where does the money go? You know, another content creator posed a good question. I should tag him whenever you find him. But he made a good point. Like, Doge saved billions, right? Where did the money go? What did it go to? Right? If it and Democrats, for the record, Democrats, apparently they need leadership. They need to be led. And you are the minority party, but you should be standing at a podium saying, we want Republicans and Doge and Donald Trump to come out and say you're not going to touch Social Security, you're not going to touch veterans benefits, you're not going to touch Medicaid, you're not going to touch SNAP. Because people are going to die. And I want you to understand this. I know for a fact, because I worked in Medicare healthcare, and I worked all day, every day with people that have Medicare and Medicaid, 90% of the people whose Donald Trump's policies threaten, right? Who Project 2025 threatens, are people that voted for them, hand over fist. So don't get it twisted. When I'm sitting here making this video and I'm thinking about all the people that are going to be impacted the most by Donald Trump's Project 2025, which, by the way, I want to continue to make content and say, Project 2025 was written by J.D. Vance and has Donald Trump's name in it 210 times. And it was funded by Peter Thiel. Okay? Now, all those billionaires you saw standing front and center at the inauguration, those are who bought that presidency and that election. And I want to keep pointing this out. There's way too many people making content taking election results at face value. And that's incorrect. Given all the public data that suggests that there was election interference and fraud, hey, you're being disingenuous when you continue to speak about the 2024 U.S. presidential election as though it was a fair fight and as though there wasn't rampant election interference and fraud, as has been evidenced pretty much across the board, you know, except for the main media outlets that haven't produced that yet. And I know that, again, I'm making this video as sort of like a dire warning that you had better start showing up at protests. You had better participate in the economic blackout on February 28th. You had better show up at your state capitol. I believe it's noon again on Tuesday, March 4th, and protest your ass off for people that don't look like you. I'm thinking about people that are disabled and in a wheelchair or on crutches, and how the monies that's being threatened, it affects like veterans in wheelchairs and crutches, and again, it feeds into the war machine that is Russia, where you usurp power. I know you're learning new words. You take power and you immediately attack the people that are like least equipped to fight first. Elderly, disabled, right? And instead of keep in mind the power of trans people. I want to point this out too. Donald Trump sits atop a golden throne, has a right-leaning House and Senate, and a friendly SCOTUS. And there's not a bill coming up through there that he could sign. They're not passing legislature. They're not actually trying to write laws. The executive orders and presidential orders are being challenged illegally, and like he's just being denied it at almost every turn. But yeah, I want to continue to make content about shit like the power of trans people. Let me get back on track. He could sign any laws he wants. Any laws could just be run up the flagpole and passed. And think about how this is, he's just there to set a blueprint and martyr themselves. You saw Elon Musk on TV the other night. He could barely complete a sentence, and he's wearing glasses and shit. And everybody knows what drugs he's on, but he says he doesn't abuse. And then somebody caught a still image of his eye, and you could see that his eye was all red and like he had bags under his eyes. And I just want to point out, like, he's crashing out. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. We were taught this as children. There's a reason why the U.S. education system's so strong, is because my dad beat my ass And I had to pay attention in fucking school, or I'd get my ass beat if I couldn't literally tell you what that teacher said word for word. So, ultimately, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And a search for power is a search for failure. And I've tried to tell people my whole life who are all about the money. It's all about the money. And I never really try to make those decisions, right? I'm 41 years old and finally got a job that I expect to make better money than I've ever made, finally, right? So I never sought that. I was trying to help people. I was trying to work for small businesses, show them what I'm capable of and how I could impact even just a small team. And now I have a much larger platform. And what I was trying to say is the power of trans people. He could pass any legislature, and he's writing trans bans, banning trans athletes. I just want to spit a little statistic about the power of trans people. In December, I read this article. It said there were like 45 trans kids in high school and college sports. And Donald Trump's writing executive orders about trans kids. And I just wanted to tell you how powerful you all are. All of you. Especially young kids. And I hope young kids catch on to my content. I'm not radical. I don't feel radical sitting here telling you that I don't want you to die with a mountain of debt, whether it be education debt or medical debt, or you were trapped in a mortgage. I don't want that for you. Or you had to pay astronomical rent. I don't want that for you. You know, if I could eliminate a job on the planet, it would be landlord. There, I eliminated housing for you. I think churches should be taxed unless they house homeless people. There, I fixed that bullshit. And again, I'm just making this long form content to try to let you know that I host a daily show. Regardless of what happens to me in my life, this is something that I do every day. As I sit down, I look at the news, I talk to people about what is going on in the world, and we try to find a path through the darkness. Have a good rest of your day.